Hey friend, welcome back. I suspect you're here because you saw the thumbnail and you want to see why I keep suggesting Leon as, one of the best buffers and one that's still relevant today. And so here today, this is the build guide for Leo or Leon. I love that his Phantom Thief name is like, let me add an N and nobody's going to notice. And so let's talk about his kit and let's talk about how to use him effectively within a team. And on your way in, if you wouldn't mind a like and a sub, it would help me out tremendously. And if there's certain character guides that you specifically want to see, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do about prioritizing these just based on, how many people are asking for the same characters. But with that, let's dive right in to Mr. Leo. So, Leo is a buffing unit, and he is of the nuke variety. So up here you can kind of see his support little symbol there. And his kit is pretty straightforward. It revolves around really using 2 powers plus his highlight. You don't really use him much as an attacker. I guess there could be places where you might use it to drop like a weakness damage, something of that variety. But ultimately, you're using him to really strengthen your main DPS unit. And I was curious to see what teams they recommend. If you don't know, you have this little recommended team. And so of course they're going to recommend one of my favorite teams, which is to bring Ryuji and Miyu. And the other one is actually with Katone. I don't really use her often, and so, well, you can tell she's level 2. And so I never really thought about this party, but I'll tell you that he is good for any team that wants to be buffed for attack or for critical damage. So, don't be limited by these party suggestions. Someone pointed out in the ring guide that she only has one team and it's Joker, which is kind of funny because you can use her in so many other places. But let's go into his skills. Let's first talk about his base awareness. What are you getting when you get him just by default? And so you grant a power of friendship, so his special kind of mechanic, to allies when their HP falls below 75%, it can stack up to twice. So power of friendship is just going to give more attack. So it's, just a kind of way for him to boost your attack damage without necessarily using a power. And then depending on what level you are, you're going to grant more attack. So, and this is common for many characters. At level 1, it's 120 attack, at 50, 180, at 70, 240, assuming you have enough of his attack built up, because it gives you like a percentage of his attack up to that amount. So pretty good base kit. You're just giving attack for somebody falling below a certain HP threshold. And the way that his passives will play into this, there's 2. So the first one is actually this full power start. I'm kind of doing this out of order, but it increases allies' critical damage by 15% when they have 2 powers of friendship, and I'm going to talk about how to get there. And so this is fantastic. So, someone like a Ryuji, this is immense on, because he's going to crit with this skill 3. And now you're buffing his crit damage on top of his attack. But it's anybody. Anybody can benefit, from this crit damage, as long as they're critting, of course. And then energy recharge, the other passive. When Justice Barrier ends, restore HP equal to 100% of the remaining shield. And so in a second here, I'll show you where that synergy comes to play. And so really, he is all about getting you to those 2 stacks of friendship, and then you're buffing attack and you're buffing crit damage. So really great to buff those types of stats. Now, as far as his kit itself, Atomic Smasher, nothing particular crazy. Deals nuke damage, and then for each stack, it increases the damage. But you're realistically not going to be using this power all too frequently. On my account here, you can see that I haven't even leveled it up because I've yet to actually use it. I'm pretty sure I haven't used it at all. And so then it really moves into a skill 2. Skill 2, spend 30% of an ally's remaining HP to grant them a shield equal to 80% of HP spent. And I'm going to show this in a team here in just a little bit, so you kind of get an idea of what this looks like. Plus 25.9% of his attack for 2 turns. Again, this changes in values when you level these up and such. But this right here, because of the base awareness mechanic of when you fall below 75%, this actually will trigger 2 stacks of friendship by using this power, because you're dropping 30%. So you bring them down to 70% of their HP. You're triggering the effect to get the stack. Plus, this grants a stack. So this is like the instant give me 2, which means now you're walking in with the 2 powers of friendship to give you a critical damage bonus. So really great interaction. And it sounds like it's going to hurt you. It does on your HP, but then you're getting a shield. And then keep in mind, with this other power, when that barrier ends, you get a HP recovery of 100% of the remaining shield. So as long as you haven't exhausted that shield, you're also going to get health back. And so it's this like yo-yo effect of health comes down, shield goes up, shield goes down, health comes up. So it's a lot safer than it sounds like it is on paper. And then especially if you start pairing him with other like shielders, now you've just got this fat shield on somebody, someone like Miyu, for example, Puppet, the Navi, or anyone else that's really providing a shielding effect can really just increase the tankiness of this character that you're using this on. And then finally, we have Ultima Booster for skill 3. Increases one ally's attack by 16%, so again, another attack boost, other than himself. And for each stack of Power Friendship, the target has increased attack by 20% of Kamiyama, Leo's attack, up to, whatever amount you've leveled up to. So you're dropping your Justice Barrier, you're getting your 2 stacks, then you're dropping Ultimate Booster, and you're getting, all this extra attack here, and you're getting the critical damage boost. I think you're seeing now where this power is scaling. And then finally, his ultimate, grant the maximum number of Power Friendship stacks, so another way to get your 2 stacks, to one ally other than himself for 2 turns. If the target HP is below 60%, which in a lot of cases you're going to start getting him down there, restore HP up to 60%, up to 200% of Kamiyama's attack. So I mean, if they're at like 1 HP, you may not get, up to 60%. Also increases attack by 15% of Leo's attack up to a certain amount for 2 turns. And then of course, the other things here. This is just another give me stacks. Let me make sure that my buff is going. And if I'm really low in health, bring me up a bit. It's a great one. And when you're trying to do your damage rotations into like a Ryuji, you're basically running a Justice Barrier, an Ultimate Booster, and then this. And now like you're giving your ultimate stacks to Ryuji or whoever that you're buffing. I use them with Joker. You can use them with, any team that you want really. And he's just going to supercharge that damage. So let's talk about awarenesses. For awarenesses, now because this is a 4-star unit, you have a good chance of getting a lot of copies. And especially if I'm talking to you a year from now, and I really hope that I am, then you might have pulled 6 copies by then. I know there's, characters that a lot of people will max out just on this journey of pulling on standard banner. And so hopefully he is one of the ones for you. We talked about his A0. A1, increase allies' defense by 10% when they have Power Friendship. So now they're becoming even tankier, so a nice little bonus. After using skills on allies, increase own attack by 25%. It's not bad. I mean, you're less using this on him for his own attack benefit in terms of attacking. This is more for his, scaling effects. Because again, if we go back here, like look at Thief's Tactic, it increases your attack, whoever you're buffing, based on Leo's attack. So it's good there, but don't confuse that wording as you want to use him as a DPS now. Awareness 3, this again is your typical give me more ranks and certain powers. Part 4, highlight enhanced increase critical damage by 25%. Yes, please. I would love to have an A4 Leo. I'd love to have an A6 Leo, but I would love to have this right now. A5, again, the other 2 skills giving you the increased skill levels. And then A6, when using a skill on an ally with HP below 60%, increase critical damage by 25% for 1 turn. So this is just, again, just boosting up that critical damage. I would love to have an A6 Leo. You don't necessarily, want to chase something like this on a standard banner, but if you get there, you get there, and it's just a fantastic benefit. So again, being that it's a 4-star and it's on standard banner, you really do not want to be like chasing down standard banner 4-star units. But if you get there, fantastic upgrades, definitely things to look out for. So let's talk about his weapons. I have currently his 4-star. So increased shield by 8.8%. This is at the default level. I've not done duplicates on it. These blue values will rise as you get duplicates. After using a skill on an ally, increase attack by 9% for a turn, and then for every 20% of HP the target has lost, increase attack by 20%. So this is great. Again, it's just a buffing of attack. You see the theme. He is just supercharging your attack with some added benefit to critical damage. But let's look at his 5-star, and this is hopefully going to reveal why with him I would really suggest you putting this as one of your potential, consolation prizes on, whatever limited banner you might be pulling on at the time. So his final buster, again, you're going to start with the default. These blue values will go up if you get copies of it somewhere. Don't chase copies, but increase attack by 30%. So you're just getting by comparison to the 4-star, a better attack, impact for himself. So it scales some of his powers. After using a skill on an ally, grant one of the following buffs: increase attack by 16, increase critical damage by 16%. But if they have two of the Power Friendship stacks, then you give them both buffs, which this is great, because when you're rolling, you're throwing your ultimates out there, you're gonna end up with 2 powers of friendship. then you're going to drop one of your powers, and then you're going to get both of these. Or for example, when you use the shielding, so where it takes the health and gives the shield, that's giving you 2 stacks. Your next one's going to be your, was it Ultimate Buster, the skill 3, and you have the 2 stacks, and now you're getting both of these effects. So very, very easy to meet these conditions. And it increased the shield effect by 10% more for 1 turn. So this is great still. I mean, you're still getting a shielding effect, but it's really these here. So this is just another way to get critical damage up. And critical damage up, especially if you're stacking that on a character for, you know, you think about their character sheet and like what buffs you're giving them for cards, this just becomes so very powerful. So an absolute favorite weapon of mine. I won my 50-50 on Joker, so I didn't necessarily pull this, but when I have a chance to get a standard 5-star weapon, this is one of my top, that and of course on. So those are the weapons, very good weapons. Let's talk about his card set. So let me pop into him here. All right, so there's really 2 main sets you might look at for a Leo here. So the first one, and it's the one that I have right now on my character, is your, you know, power and trust. So power, increase attack by 12%. Remember, a lot of his power scale and his attack, we're going to talk about them when we get to the substats. And from the start of battle, increase attack by 10% every 6 turns, stacks up to 3 times, so another 30%. So this is a great attack boosting set. And then for the final, you know, the full set here, at the start of battle, increase other allies' attack by 10%. Doesn't activate if stacked. What that means is you can't have multiple characters, you know, running the same card set and get this like crazy, you know, 4x attack bonus. So keep in mind, some of these card effects do not stack. So you don't want to run like 2 supports and then have them both running the same thing in a lot of cases, because you're just only going to activate 1 card set. But this is kind of one of my default go-tos for Leo that I would suggest. Let me switch my cards. I'll show you the other one. Okay, there we go. This is the other set. So you're still running the trust card, but you're going to switch down to prosperity, or abundance as they call it over here. And this is going to decrease damage taken by 8%, helps him survive a bit. At the start of battle, this will give you a highlight gauge boost. So if you're trying to juice up your highlight early, this is like a kickstart to that. And then after using a skill on an ally, increase party's damage by 8% for 2 turns. So another good one just to boost damage. I don't think either one is wrong. Because so much scales on his attack, I like having the attack bonuses personally, but you could go with either set and be just fine. Okay, let's talk about the main stats on our friend here. And he's an interesting one because he really does play off of his powers. And so there's a little bit of min-maxing you can do with him. And if you look at these, you know, it's going to say things like, you know, increase attack by 15% of his attack up to a certain amount. Or, you know, same thing over here, increase attack by 20% of his attack, you know, up to a certain value. So once you reach a certain attack threshold, you don't get benefit on these skills any further. And so it's almost like wasted stats. So if you want to really play the min-max game, then the way that you want to run his revelation cards is get his attack up to the point that you're maximizing that percentage. And so you have to kind of check that by level. And then switch over to HP percent just to make him not die. He is pretty darn squishy. And so HP percentage will help with that squishiness, but you really want to focus attack first, you know, for your main stats. Sorry, on Sun, it's always HP. So like this right here. And then when you've gotten enough effect out of your attack percentage, you switch into like an HP percent. If you don't want to do the math on that, there's a couple things you could do. You could just run all attack and, you know, just live with the squishiness a little bit. You could also maybe choose to do, you know, maybe a couple attack and a couple HP and kind of blend that out a little bit. So, you know, if you want to get crazy min-maxing, check the math on it. If you don't want to, you know, I'd probably be happy with a couple, maybe 2 to 3 attack percent cards and an HP percent card. And, you know, feel good about that. Oh, I guess you could only do, I always forget that Sun is always HP. So you could do that plus 1 HP percent and a couple attack percentages, and that would be like a good kind of mixture that you could look at. And then it's really the same story for, you know, the substats. You really just need attack percent and HP percentages. Or, you know, in a lot of cases, don't go chasing like a perfect card because you have, like you see mine, HP instead of HP percent. You really just want to get your attack high enough that you're maximizing the value of your Leo's, you know, different skills, and then put the rest into surviving. don't let him die because he doesn't do much buffing when he's laying face down on the floor. So the card's pretty simple in that way, but you do have a couple sets that you can decide to run one way or the other. And then finally, for his mental image for the future, let me switch to my KR account so I can show it to you, over there. We don't have it activated just yet on this client. Okay, so here we are, my KR account. I do not have him built on my KR account, and I am very happy I'm building him on global. Over time, I actually realized his value, and now I know to get him going early. So as far as priorities go, this last one here, this is your skill 2 and your skill 3. And so you definitely want to be pushing this one all the way up first in terms of your resource priorities and your limited resources, particularly the rainbow ones. Then you want to move into attack percent. So this is just giving that extra offense, and again, scales off the attack. Then you're going to move into HP. Boy squishy. You're going to want to keep him alive. And so pushing the HP percent. And then the final one here is your highlights in your skill 1. Not really using skill 1. Highlights great, but you do want him to survive, which is why HP is going to go first. And then finally, throw your bells into your increased stats here when you're done with all these. And the bells are its own thing, so you can just kind of pump them in as you have them and you want to invest in the character. If you don't want to invest in the character, then of course you're not using your resources here anyways, but not a bad idea to start juicing this up. That's mental image, pretty straightforward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and put these in as you can. Now let me switch back to the other client, and I actually want to show you a quick demonstration of him in action with Mr. Ryuji, and I'll show you how his powers interact and give you those buffs. Okay, I'm going to show you one of my favorite teams. This is like a boss, single target killing team here. And so everything I've built is synergistic. So we're going to icy defense up first. This is going to give us a, defense increase, which is going to help with survivability for both our boys there. And then on Leo, I like to lead with Justice Barrier. So I'm going to put this on Ryuji, and I'm going to show you something. So the way the skills read, one might think that that would give 1 stack. But if I look at my details here now, you're going to see that he's already in rebound, which is what you need to do with Ryuji. And he's already got the 2 power friendships running. So we're set up. Like we're going to start giving ourselves, ample opportunities to do more damage. Ryuji, I'll just pick our blue friend over here. This is literally all I do on Ryuji, and I don't hate it. I'm just going to charge up his skill 3 to do a guaranteed crit on the enemy, and I want to get that crit as powerful as possible. So now until Ryuji goes again, what I need to do is get him juiced. So on here, I've got options. I can run this right now, or I can start getting into some defense debuffs. So this is going to decrease for 3 turns. So I'm going to run Raccoonda over here, get that on him. And then, they're going to have their turn. They're going to do whatever they do. Knock me down, clearly. Okay, that was a lot of just targeting him, which is great. So now I'm going to throw another shield out there with my puppet. This is all to help me survive, of course. And she doesn't have enough seashell stacks yet to give the extra attack damage. And then hopefully this doesn't kill. This is probably a really easy battle. Don't kill. Okay. And so now I'm, stacking more defense downs. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to drop Ultima Booster onto Ryuji. And unfortunately, my Wonder should be faster than Ryuji if I really wanted to set this up. But there you go. That was almost 20,000 on that one hit. So in a ideal situation, Wonder would go first. I would switch back to Jikokuten, and then I would run whatever his attack bonus is, because that would actually give Ryuji even more damage because of his thresholds, and he would have hit even harder. But you saw there kind of in action a very simple rotation that juiced up Ryuji and got a single hit to hit for 20,000. And this is without maxed cards. This is without, Ryuji doesn't actually even have any cards right now. So that is without any gear set on him at all. But keep in mind, Leo doesn't just have to run with Ryuji. Now, is it a great synergy? Absolutely. It's one of my favorite teams. But you could put him with Joker. So I don't have Rin at the moment, and I'm not going to run her down on the beginner banner. I'll get her when I get her. But instead of her, I'm just flipping the theory and going from the debuffing, amping Curse into the buffing with attack and crit damage into Joker with Leo. My fire team I don't, because that's fully synergistic. It's a mono fire team, so I've got Key and I've got Cattle. But wherever you need some extra juice or a good buffer, you can feel free to put a Leo in that slot, and it's really not going to hurt you. And so that really kind of is the should you pull, should you build, concept. Should you pull, of course, I'm going to tell you not to chase him down on the standard banner. But I got him from my selector. So if you have a 4-star selector and you don't have him, and there's not someone else that you just personally like more, I think is a fantastic target for you to go for. And that's exactly what I did. And if you don't have him, don't feel bad. There's plenty of great characters, but that is a place that I would look to find him if I wanted or needed him. As far as, again, chasing it on the standard banner, don't go blowing your tickets in hopes to get him. He's a 4-star, and he's an amazing 4-star. And so you're likely to get him eventually regardless, just from pulling on that banner. You end up with basically all the 4-stars or enough of them. And then should you build him, I would actually put him as a priority build. He can do a lot of good things, and later in the future, you're going to find other characters that you want to juice up that crit damage. And so he is still a relevant character, even as a 4-star, to use, in the game in other servers today. So he has that longevity, he has that value that you can get not just for the current content cycle, which obviously he's great at with the limited number of characters we have, but it's something that you can carry, for a long time to come and still get a lot of great use out of. And that's it. That's why I love my boy Leo, especially if you want to run the fun Ryuji team. He just amps him up so much, and it just makes that a joy to crit with Ryuji and just drop massive amounts of damage on the heads of enemies. So I would build him if I were you, and you've pulled him, obviously. And with that, my friends, if you wouldn't mind dropping that like and sub on your way out, it does help this reach more people in the community, which is always a great thing. And until our next video or the next stream, please take care of yourselves.